Welcome to Request for Inspection. Sit back, relax, and concentrate, as the coming crime recap is not for the faint-hearted. This is the true crime of Henry Chau, the parent slayer who killed, butchered, and cooked his own parents. What drove this man to conduct such atrocities? Did he act alone, and how did it all transpire? Henry Chau Hoi Leung, a pianist, had little problems in life. The 30-year-old was dependent on his parents for financial support, so he didn't work. His parents even paid for his studies abroad in the hopes that he would receive a top-notch education. When 65-year-old Chau Wing-Ki and 62-year-old Siu Yue told their son Henry Chau that they no longer could financially support him, Henry was in disbelief, and clearly infuriated. Instantly, he experienced strong feelings of abandonment and resentment toward his parents. They insisted Henry find employment. Instead, acting like a spoiled child, he abandoned them and left their house. Later, Henry would admit that he had been upset with his mother for making him look bad in front of the girl he had fallen in love with on his 24th birthday. He also criticized his mother for making him learn the piano and for making a sad look at him when he didn't do anything to help the household. Afterwards, Henry expressed to his therapist his desire to accomplish something significant before turning 30. According to his own reports, he said he had intended to kill himself but didn't actually do it. Henry alleged that after he told his friend Angus about his plan to commit suicide in September 2012, Angus inspired him to think of killing his parents instead. The deal with the devil had been done. Now this is a clear detail in the whole story which we should pay attention to, particularly as the events unfold. Remember, according to Henry, it was Angus who planted the idea in his mind. The following 3 months were spent by Henry devising a scheme to murder his parents. Henry wrote down a shopping list of the items they required to carry out the double homicide, along with additional gory details of the dismemberment and the aftermath of the murder, with the assistance of his friend Angus. The men bought the supplies on the shopping list, including the knives, rice cooker, and microwave they would need to commit the murder. Henry may have reached his point of no return, since what he was about to undertake would ultimately allow him to accomplish his goal of making a significant contribution. Henry brought his folks over for dinner on March 1, 2013. The old couple happily accepted the invitation since they were relieved to hear from their son once more. They believed that the evening would provide them with the opportunity to patch things up. This demonstrated how devoted they were to Henry even today. Later examination of CCTV cameras would pick up the three, eerily walking down the street towards the apartment. As Glory Chau and Moon Siu entered the living room, Henry and Angus allegedly initiated the attack, since this was the moment when they felt ready, according to Henry's testimony. Henry described his accomplice Angus as a very powerful man who covered Moon Siu's mouth from behind while slashing her throat. Henry Chau admitted to stabbing his father in the back of the neck, but stated Angus was the one who finished the job by slashing Glory Chau's throat. The autopsy reports later confirmed the causes of death. However, like all autopsy reports, they could not confirm how the deaths occurred. The men killed the couple and then started tearing their bodies apart. Some of the body parts were packed with salt and put inside the freezer, the heads were put inside the refrigerator. Afterwards, Henry admitted to investigators that he had intended for the body pieces to appear like barbecued pork. 4 days after the tragedy, when Angus had all the body parts severed, salted, chilled, and remoisturized, Henry went back to the Tai Kok Shui crime site. Henry said that his involvement in the double murder consisted of just killing, whereas Angus was responsible for dismembering the victims. Henry said that at first Angus tried to cover the remains with cement and sand to make them look like bricks. So he devised a simpler scheme: prepare the body parts and pass them off as grilled pork. Some of the remains were also covered with sand and thrown into the sea. During the investigation held on March 15, 2013, the heads of the two victims were found inside the two separate refrigerators. In those refrigerators, lunch boxes containing microwaved human flesh, and 3 bags containing chopped limbs and other body parts were found. In his testimony, Henry stated that his mother always looked sad when Henry did not contribute to the family. "I thought that if I could resolve the emotional connection with my parents, it would be a solution," he said. "If they died, I could be reborn." He blamed his parents for his failures in life. To carry out such a coordinated attack and dismemberment, you have to imagine both Henry and Angus were fully conscious of what they were doing, and somehow, in some strange and twisted way, this is what they planned and wanted to do. On March 12, 2013, 5 days after Henry's older brother filed a missing persons report, the police confirmed that there were no records of their parents leaving Hong Kong. Thus on March 13, 2013, Henry and his older brother approached Apple Daily, a prominent Hong Kong news outlet at the time, claiming that they had not heard from their parents since 2 March. Henry stated that before their disappearance, his parents had informed him that they were planning to travel to mainland China. The brothers then created a Facebook page titled My Missing Dad and Mom and asked their friends and the public for any information that could link to their parents' whereabouts. On March 14, 2013, Henry Chau was invited to the police station for further questioning. Apple Daily continued to release articles about the Chau brothers' struggle to find their missing parents. In a sensational twist, during the police interview, Henry texted his friends in a WhatsApp group, named HK Tech 10 and confessed to the crime. Henry even described the grim details and reasons for the murder. Police did not believe Henry's story but immediately rushed to search his home. Walking into the apartment, police discovered the floor splattered with blood and the smell of air fresheners was extremely strong. The heads of Henry's parents were found once they opened the fridges. Police recovered other frozen body parts in the freezer and inside the 2 refrigerators. They also found body parts and flesh paired with rice packed inside lunchboxes. Could it be that Henry and Angus has already consumed some of the victims? 3 other buckets found in various areas of the home contained human remains. Also recovered was a journal detailing how they would carry out the killings, a shopping list of items the pair needed to carry out the murders, and other rantings related to murder and dismemberment. Angus would deny involvement with the murders, claiming Henry killed his own parents. Angus did, however, admit to police that he helped Henry dismember and cook his parents' body parts. Henry, however, initially denied involvement with the murder but soon changed his story. On March 15, 2013, a day after the interview, Henry and his friend, Angus, were indicted for killing and dismembering Henry's parents in Angus's Tai Kok Shui flat in the Old Holland building. Note, this apartment was actually rented in Angus's name. Police recovered WhatsApp messages Henry sent to a friend from the police station confessing to the murders. 2 years later, during the trial on March 9, 2015, the defense lawyer, Nicholas Adams, called psychiatrist Chau to the stand. Chau diagnosed Henry with bipolar disorder and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Chau stated that Henry had experienced many suicidal thoughts after dropping out of college, being rejected by women, and being unemployed, giving a possible psychological trigger for the murder. Angus and Henry's IQs were tested by SIU Lam Psychiatric Center expert Louis Sing Hung. Angus had an IQ of 84, whereas Henry had a higher-than-average IQ of 126. Louis believed that Henry, who had such a higher IQ than Angus, might have deceived people and accused Angus of murder. Both defendants entered a not guilty plea. 2 initial jury members requested to be discharged from the case, because they were under too much psychological stress owing to the case's graphic contents. As a result, the trial had to be continued once a new jury was chosen. 6 months later, in February 2015, the case was restarted. According to the prosecution, the crime was a meticulously planned, cold-blooded murder. Henry Chau and Angus C. reportedly discussed how they would carry out the murder and dispose of the remains, according to Henry Chau's own confession. Henry was responsible for the most of the planning. Henry Chau was described by the judge as being a highly convincing actor and as being very dangerous. In addition, he voiced disgust at the way police handled the mentally handicapped Angus C., detaining him in detention for 40 hours and subjecting him to non-stop questioning for 9 hours. On March 20, 2015, 5 days into the trial, the verdict was passed. The High Court found Henry Chau guilty of double murder, while finding his accomplice, Angus C. not guilty on both counts of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. The court handed down an additional 9 years, 4 months on a conviction of improper preventing a lawful burial. He currently serves his time at Hong Kong's Court of First Instance. Unbelievably, Angus, on the other hand, was sentenced to 1 year, yes 1 year, for preventing the lawful burial of the bodies. As Angus had already been detained for 2 years on remand, he was released immediately. Angus was cleared of both murder charges, even though 2 victims were killed while he and Henry were in the same apartment. Right after the trial, Angus C. consented to an exclusive interview with Next magazine. In the video, while wearing face masks, he sits on a bed in his hotel room close to his sister. He uses his body and hands excitedly when speaking in a childlike manner with twisted hands. Could it really be that Angus did nothing? The goal of Henry Chau's parents was for him to succeed and make something of himself. In the end, it was this characteristic, his failure to finish a task, that resulted in his incarceration. He could have avoided punishment if he had removed all the body parts, cleaned the apartment, and waited 7 years for the death certificate to be issued for his parents. He could have been spending his parents' money lavishly instead of being in prison, and nobody would have known. Why then did he confess? Was it because he felt pleased with himself for accomplishing something huge before turning 30? Perhaps he had intended to end both his parents' and his own lives in that way all along, as in a musical composition masterpiece. There is no pressure to succeed or perform in prison, one can just exist. He charged the flame, and now, for the rest of his life, he is bathing in its heat. Such a high-profile case was subsequently reenacted in a movie, called The Sparring Partner, which was released in 2022. It is definitely worth a watch. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more gruesome crimes that shook the world.